Good evening. It's nice to be back. The second evening where we want to continue our study that we started to know why do we have stress, anxiety, conflicts, depression, and chronic diseases. We have seen yesterday, for those who have been here, that stress is mostly a conflict with the time. Anxiety is a conflict with space, and depressions and diseases are a conflict with the people, with society. I think this is the best way to stay, so you see. Yeah. And we have seen that humans do this to themselves. And the question is, why do they do that to themselves? Why is the try to do something that is not possible stronger than reason? Why do we have no solution? And the answer superficially would be the lack of self-knowledge. We have seen that in overcoming disease and its causes, we face two things. That is, we do not know ourselves, we do not know our structure, our functions, and the basic laws that govern our being, and we are incapable to control ourselves, our thoughts, and our actions. When certain things happen, we take ourselves in prison, and we are suffering from there. So, we want to do this seminar to get out of the knowledge, and at the end also see the way to get out of the incapacity to control ourselves. We have seen last night that there are 4 things that we are going to study together, and those 4 things are unchangeable things. And unchangeable things are a very solid base that we could put ourselves in our way to think. The first thing that we are going to study is the fundamental law. We must understand that law that governs all being. From the smallest atom to all the galaxy, there is one law that governs everything. And that fundamental law is that what we know, but we haven't used to it to just know how it works in the practical and everyday application. Then we have to know the structure of humanity. That will take us the most time to just understand the structure and to know how we are built as humans. And I hope also this technique will work. I won't disturb us again and again. I'm just checking. So, this will take us the most time. That's why we have such a long seminar to study not fixing that, but to understand the structure. You see, that's how things get to be misunderstood. So understanding the structure of humanity, that will take us the most time. That is a study indeed that goes in depth to know ourselves. And of course, together with that, we need to know our basic needs. We need to know what do we need to live, and we need to know the function that comes together by it. Those 4 things are going to be our foundation of our study, and since these things are unchangeable, so we can trust that they are there. We just need to acknowledge them. They don't need interpretation. You see, when there is something that needs interpretation, that is subjective. And we saw that if we want to estimate the length of this pen, that is a estimation. Yes? That's an interpretation. But if you put the meter here, then there is no interpretation anymore. That's just an acknowledgement that this pen is 15.1 centimeter, or I don't know how much is that in inches. 6 inches, yeah? So then we just acknowledge that. And if we take this in pieces, then we acknowledge how the pieces are put together. There is nothing that we need to interpret. There is no need for interpretation of the law. There is no need for interpretation of the human structure because it's set, it's unchangeable. There is no need for interpretation what we need, and there is no need for interpretation what comes out of that, the function of all these things. That's why I like things to put my trust on, or it's not the trust then, it's acknowledging that these things are so. Yeah? And so we start tonight with the law. We have many laws in nature. We don't have only one law. But there is one that is fundamental, on which all other laws are based on. And they all go from there on. And so there are the basic law and the secondary laws. And that's gravitation, liquids, gases, aerodynamics, and so on. So we all know that we have fundamental laws and we have other laws built on that. Now, what's the difference between a fundamental law and a secondary law? Could anyone guess? So let's make an example. Is gravitation a fundamental law or a secondary law? Yes, we can. The question with the breaking of the law, yes, that it's something that we have to go through it, we will see it. But all laws in nature are absolute laws, yes? But there is a difference between one that is a secondary or a fundamental law. And we usually don't make that difference, that's why we come into relativism. Yeah, because if you take a secondary law and you don't know the condition which it needs to function, then you might think that law is not absolute, it's relative. But that's the difference between the two laws. The one is that all the laws that are secondary, they need to... Is it there? Not yet. Is it there? Okay. So a secondary law needs circumstances that it might function. So gravitation is a secondary law because you can build something where you can take that law away. It's not functioning anymore. Yes? So, but the fundamental law is independent of circumstances. I'll give you a small example of a friend of mine who lives very nice out in nature, like you live here, but he lives in Romania, and there the temperature goes down, minus 20, minus 25 degrees Celsius. That's the same in, minus 40 in Fahrenheit. And so he uses liquid gas for his stove. And so he fills up the bottle of liquid gas for his stove, taking the big bottle out of 20 degrees minus and brings it down in his downstairs and fills it up. But he doesn't count that when the temperature are low, liquid gas is expanding or constricting? It contracts, yes? So he fills up exactly to the line that he has to fill up his gas bottle, but since that gas is contracted, it's too much that he should be able to fill in. So a few minutes later, his house, boom, goes into the air. Half of the house is just... And so that happens because he didn't consider a secondary law. But it also happens because there is the fundamental law that works on that. So secondary laws are dependent on circumstances. The fundamental law is never dependent on circumstances because you can never put it away. It's always in action and it governs all things. Now let us look. We don't want to spend the time with the secondary laws. They are also important. It blows your house in the air if you don't pay attention. But if we would understand the fundamental law, we would not even break the secondary ones. So what's the fundamental law of all being? The fundamental law says that everything is dependent on power, on energy. It says that nothing can have its own energy from itself. It always must come from outside. And all energy can only be not kept for long, it must be transformed, or it has to be passed on. Why can we not store energy? Because the law doesn't say you can. It always must be passed on. We can have it for a little while, like in batteries, but we'll never have a battery that lasts. Because if we don't use the battery, still the power will go away, because the law cannot be broken. The law will work always, and energy must always pass on. And we'll see that it's in everything the same. It must be passed on. So I one day had a patient. He was a young man, and he had a funny disease. He got an itching of his skin every time after his shower. And it started with 15 minutes itching the skin after he showered. And when he came to me, he had it now for an hour. After he showered, the skin was itching. And I said, I know what your problem is. He was astonished. He said, how long are you here in the practice? Because he went to many doctors to fix his problem. And I said, I know why you have it. And then he said to me, and I said, I'm only for 8 years. I was then 8 years in my practice. And I said, I'm 8 years in my practice. How can you know after 8 years how these things work? Well, I said, there's a simple law that you have to understand. But he didn't believe me because he was a student of universities and he just finished chemistry. And so he thinks that to find out things, it takes years. Does it? No. It's just, you can find out things in a second. It doesn't take time. But we think it takes time. So we studied to find out breast cancer for a long time now. I'm flying sometimes with Delta to America, and I don't know, I'm coming out to America for many years, every year, once or twice or thrice. And when I fly with Delta, they have 1 month, I think it's in October, then they take donations for supporting the breast cancer research. And I said, how long will they still study for that research? How much time do they need to find it out? You can spend a lot of money, they will never find it out. Because in the way we study things, we will never find things out. We can spend all the money of it. And so this young man was contradicting me. He said, you cannot know it because you're too young and your experience cannot be there again. And so I was provoked. Sometimes I get myself provoked. And so I asked him a question back. I said, you studied chemistry. Do you know where the power comes from the atom nucleus, from the nucleus from the atom? Do you know where the power comes from? Is there power in the nucleus of the atom? Is there power there? Big power or small power? Big power, we know it. Very big power in one nucleus of the atom. And then he said to me, if I would know that, I would be in the news. So he studied a long time, he studied his, I don't know how many years, chemistry, and he doesn't know where the power of the nucleus of the atom comes from. So I said, how do you not know? Yes, because you studied. You should know where the power comes. Because by the law, you know exactly, and they know exactly, that the power that is in the nucleus of the atom can never come from the nucleus of the atom. They know that. Because the law doesn't permit that power from the nucleus of the atom can come from the nucleus itself. It must come from outside. So he confesses that he does not know. That means he knows that it doesn't come from the inside of the nucleus. So I just want to make the point. Everything, every power must come from outside. There is never a power that is inside this pen. You must put it in so that the pen can work. I have to recharge it. I asked the technician if this batteries last for long. He said, yes, they last. So, because there is a loss of power, or the power must be went on, and the power comes from outside. So, out of this fundamental law, I take two conclusions. And these two conclusions will be with us. That says every effect, is it still gone again? Yeah, the screensaver is also nice. Yes. So, sometimes it works perfectly. Techniques it's a mystery, yes. Sometimes it works without interruption, and then sometimes it just doesn't work well at all. Didn't last for long, no? So every effect must have a cause. It doesn't work. Is it there? Yes, okay. So, is that clear for everyone, that every effect must have a cause? Yes? Okay. And everything must take in order to give. Everything has an input and an output. You always have this. The one is the cause, and the effect is that what comes out of the law, and the taking and the giving is the function of the law. And we'll look closer to this, but just come now to our theme to understand the law of cause and effect. So the cause is usually invisible. And then how many effects can we have from one cause? How many effects? Billions of effects from one cause. So we have here, that's why the primary effect, the secondary effect, the tertiary effect, and we can have the infinite effect. If you would put just an infinite row of domino pieces, how many would we need to push? The first one. And then the power would be going from one piece to the other until eternity, if the pieces would just be there all. That's why we must understand that in nature we always have a starting point and the chain of reactions. So in medicine we do that mistake, or even in common language, that we call a effect a cause. That means we call the primary effect or the secondary effect as the cause for the tertiary effect. But we still speak on effects. So if a person has stress, is stress a cause or an effect? It's an effect. Yeah, stress is an effect. It must have a cause that is before there. So then you might get dizzy and then you fall. So what do you treat? Where do you want to put your... Would you take the stress away? Can you fight with stress? You cannot. You can do all stress seminar you want. You never get the problem if you don't change the cause. Yeah? Because that is there. So you have people that have anxiety. They will have a behavior change. They don't go out anymore. They wash their clothes 7 times a day or whatever. And then they lost work because they cannot go to school anymore. So what would you want to change? Their behavior, you want to change, force them to go to work, or would you try to change their cause? And then you have conflicts. What are conflicts? Cause or effects? Their effects, depression, suicide. So what do we need to do against the depression, against the conflicts? We need to understand the cause of it. And that's, sometimes people use that's the root cause. Yeah? But we must know there is one cause, and it would be better to just use the words cause and many effects. And always try to find out what is a cause and what is an effect. Actually, for me, that's a training in my mind. Whenever I see something, I put my question, what is it, a cause or an effect? Because that's basic to understand. Because there are 2 things you have to have separate in your mind. Can cause and effect be at some point the same thing? Can cause and effect be at some point the same, or are they always separate? I don't see that you're very sure. Yes, but you know it, they are always different. There can never be the same. So a cause can never be an effect can never be a cause. That's very, very important to know. What is the iPad, an effect or a cause? It's an effect. Can it also be the cause, that is the creator that made it? Can it be the one that made it? No. So we are effects, and so God is the cause. Can he also be the effect? You see, by this law you would exclude all kind of ideas that humans can be gods or a part of God, because effect and cause are never the same. What's an effect can never be in a cause. And what's a cause, what's an effect, what's a cause is, yeah, you have understood it. So, we come to the human body. The human body is sick. It has an interesting sickness. I tell you a case. Just recently he was almost 50 years old, and he came to my practice with a egg in his left ear for 9 months. 9 months he has off and on pain in his left ear. And he came into my practice, and he had on his right foot a plastic casket like this, to fix his leg. And I asked him, what do you have with your leg? Because he was, when he had that thing on his leg, he said, well, 6 weeks ago, I ruptured partially my Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon is the strongest tendon we have. It never ruptures, except you have a mental problem. That's even orthopedics know. Because it's the strongest tendon, and it ruptures while you do a certain exercise, but it must be hurt, or it must be already damaged before it can partially rupture. And so I have now the left ear, and I have the right foot. Now, those who know a little bit of anatomy, and we will learn that, know that it comes from the same side of the brain. That is the left side of the brain. And now you would think that the left ear and the right foot are very far away, are they? Not in the brain. In the brain they are neighbors. That's why it's very simple. If you have a left ear problem and a right leg problem, then it is the same thing. But those are effects, are they? Now, if you find a sickness in the body, can the sickness come from the body? Now, this is how we have to apply the law that never changes. If the law is correct, that where the effect is, the cause cannot be, then when we see the body, then we know that in the body we will never find the cause for his left ear axe, and we don't find the cause for his ruptured tendon. Because the law never permits you that at the place where you have the effect, the cause will be also. So in the body, every disease that the body has can never come from the body itself. It must come from outside. So when I got to understand this law, where will I search for the cause of this effect? I must search outside of the body, because it cannot come from the same place. You see, when you have a bump in your car, yes, will you take that bump out and say, I put this under the microscope to see how does it happen, to find out the cause? Will you find it there? Would any normal person do that? No, but in medicine we do it. We just take out the piece and want to see why did the cancer appear in the breast or wherever it appears. We will never find, searching the body, the cause of disease in the body. Genes are effects. They cannot make disease. It's impossible. They must be turned on. Someone else must turn them on to make the disease. So that's why when we understand the law and we go with it, it will just make everything very clear and simple. You never search when you have a problem in your body, the cause in your body, because it cannot be. When you have an ear infection, you look to the ear infection, you know it does not come from the body. It must come, or it does not come from the ear. It must come from somewhere else. So as simple as this law is, you see already, it takes a little bit time to think about it. Yes? Because we are not used to just implement the law strictly. So I know this gentleman has a disease in his body, but the problem cannot come from the body itself. So there are four general, I could say, you will see it's not causes, but we can approach them as causes in the end. Inheritance. Can we inherit a disease? Yes. What is inheritance? A cause or an effect? Well, how much of you is inherited? All of us, all of what I have, I am in, it's all inheritance. So, what am I, a cause or an effect? I'm an effect. You're an effect. So inheritance is an effect. Yes, it affects your body, it affects your life, but it comes and it has as a cause an action that has been done before you existed. Yes, in your ancestor, someone did need to break the law so that it happens that he gives further on, he passes on a dysfunction, to call it like that then every generation might have, or yes? It is something that affects you. Can you do anything about it? Can we do anything about heredity? No. Inheritance is clear. We can do nothing, and it is not our action. That if we inherit the way our... Opala, no one told me that. If we inherit our nose, we cannot choose, yes? Some people choose to do a surgery on it, yes, because they want to have a nicer nose. But the way you have your nose, you have inherited it, and it's not in your action how big your nose is or not, yes? So, we need to know that how many diseases are genetic. Because we sometimes make the confusion between inheritance and genetic. So, I give you something to study. So, all diseases must be genetic, but only 2 to 3% are inherited. You must have a program for every disease. It must be turned on. And I tell you just simply, my wife doesn't have the program for herpes. You know, the blisters that come? Yeah? The herpes? Why not? Because when I break the law in my mind, I get them. Sometimes. Sometimes I get something else. But I'm now married for over 35 years, and whenever I had that, and I kissed my wife never got it in 35 years. And it says it's contagious. But she doesn't have the program. And you don't have the program, nothing will work. You can put on her whatever, how many herpeses you want. You can put and turn them on the body. Won't have nothing because there's no program to put that into action. So without a program, you cannot get any disease. Any disease is a program, and it is programmed in the genes. And the genes put it into, they do the work, but on a command that comes from outside the genes. I compare genes with lights. Can a light burn by itself? No, it needs to be turned on and off. So, and those who know a little bit of medicine, they know that genes are turned off and on, turned off and on. Depends on what we need. Almost all our hormones are not made except on demand. Yes? So if it's made on demand, then that gene needs to be turned off, the hormones need to be produced, and then when they're enough, they are turned off and the production stops, or the release stops. Yeah? So that's very basic to understand. Our genes are programs, but they need to be turned on and off. And that is good. If you have a disease, that you turned your genes on with a, a cough or a nervous tic or an allergy or whatever you have, you can turn that gene again off and then you are healed. Isn't that simple? So, we have a secondary thing that can damage our body, that's our accidents. Can we avoid accidents 100%? No, because they are not always our action. They can be our action. We can do mistakes and not pay attention, but in the end, we can never avoid an 100% an accident because others can hit us. So, accidents can break our body. What are accidents? Causes or effects? They are effects because there is, before the accident, a decision making in you or in other people. Then chemistry, we need to eat, do we? And we are susceptible to environmental things. We have to breathe and all this. The air. So, can we control what we eat? Oh, some people just respond too early. Can you control what you eat? Now let me understand. Maybe you don't understand the question. We came to understand that accidents we cannot control for a whole. But I am invited to eat somewhere. like I ate today at the church potluck. Did I know what I eat? Yes or no? Not fully, no. I just saw and picked up what I thought is best for me, but I have no idea what that has in it. So food and chemistry is not controllable. You only can do it partially. So that's important to know. People try to control what they eat. They never know what they eat. Except they do it by themselves, but even then they don't know. There is sour rain or whatever comes on that plant, and they still have a chemistry change because they take in something that is not controllable by themselves. So to try to control in the end what you eat is impossible. Yes, it's good to know what you eat. Yes, and you put things together, and don't know if we have time to talk about eating, but however, there is something, and that point I want to make. Eating is a cause or an effect? It's an effect. Because you must take a choice for it, to do it or not. And you see the effect in the body, but before you eat, you have a choice. What you eat or not, yeah? But, as I said, you must eat, and when you're invited, like me, every 2-3 days I have to eat somewhere else, so I don't know what people give me to eat. And but I trust that God takes care for that. So there are 3 things we see. I didn't put them under the cause because they are already effects, but they can affect me directly. Yes? Inheritance can affect me directly. Accidents, chemistry can affect me directly. But there is one thing that is a cause for what makes my Achilles tendon break, and those are thoughts. Thoughts. Now the question is, can anyone think instead of you? No. So thoughts are the only actions we do ourselves. And if most diseases come from not controlling our thoughts, as we are going to prove, then that is something that we certainly have to do, because only we can think for ourselves. But you see how fun it is? In medicine, we try to control circumstances which are we are never going to be able to control circumstances. We are never able to control what we eat or not, even though we can pay attention to what we eat. But in the end, what we have to control is the way we think. But that no one teaches us, or no one shows us that is a real cause for our body to get disease. So, cause and effect to different things. Let's see. Stress, anxiety, and conflicts, they are thoughts processes. They are not chemistry processes. Yes, you don't fear because you ate poison. You might fear to die after you see that something doesn't work well in your body, but fear doesn't come from poison. Fear doesn't come from chemistry or from accident. Fear is a pure thought process. So stress, trying to control the time as we define it, is a thought process. Conflicts that we have in our life, they are not things that are to say about food and so on. It's about thought processes. So we could avoid all of them if we just know how to think, how to not do things that are not controllable. So what we really need to know is our thoughts are a cause for our body to get sick. So that's why we need to know, where do thoughts come from? Where do they arise? Where do we need to find out where thoughts come from? Where have we to look? Where do they enter the body? Do they enter the body through the stomach? where do they enter the body? They must enter the body in the head. It must be starting on the cortex level. So the cortex is the outer layer of the brain, and we have two of them, right side and left side, and they're not connected at the beginning. They're only connected further down in the limbic system. There are some connections on the other side going down, but until the limbic system, there is no connection of the cortex. Now, if we know that that is so, we know the cortex works with what kind of power? It must come from outside, but what is the power the cortex works with? You know it, it's electricity. Yes? The power that we have in our brain, it's like in a battery. Yeah? It must be charged. The power, the cortex works with electricity, the limbic system works with chemistry, and from the chemistry there comes the feedback as chemistry in the cortex where we have then the chemical reactions. But everything starts with electricity. So let's look to this gentleman who has his ear problems and his tendon rupture. We know it comes from his left. This is the left side, okay? This is right and this is left. It's like you look to the gentleman. And he is in his left side, he has here on this cortex the process starting that makes his hearing eggs, yes, and his tendon rupture, because they might be neighbors here in the cortex. We know the program must start from there. Who puts this program into action? Who has access to your cortex? Only the thoughts. So where do the thoughts come? Do they come from the limbic system or from outside or the cortex? No, they must come from outside of the cortex. Because we have seen that thoughts are pure spiritual things. They are not chemistry. We can never put thoughts in a bottle and say, look, these are thoughts. So thoughts are pure spiritual. That's why they come from outside and they do something to the brain. And we must understand what they do to the brain. And through thoughts, through decision, we make our electricity. And by that, that goes into our body. One of the first things I observed in my practice was that disease is a program. It's an intention. Do you think that you need hunger? Is hunger intentional? Is freezing intentional? Now, I know my English is not so good. You want to see, do you shake your heads? Probably you don't understand me. Do you think we must have hunger or not? Yes or no? Why do we need to have it? Because we need to be aware when the body has some needs. So is hunger intentional? Was it so programmed that it should come up and give us making us a lighting that something is missing? That's what I mean is intentional. It is so programmed that it must come out when there is a need. Yes, that's an intention. So disease is an intention. It's never an accident. Disease is an intention to make clear to you, like it is hunger or thirst or tiredness, that something in your body is missing. That was a great thing for me to see when I understood that disease starts from the cortex. Your tendon never ruptures, except because your cortex gives the command. And of course it goes through the bone marrows and all those chains of actions. But you know it. You don't have ear X or you don't have head X on your left side of the brain from food or from, you can have it from a hit, but this gentleman was not hit for 9 months to have this on and off a pain in his left ear or left side of his body. So I know that those are are intentions to show us that something in the body doesn't work correctly. And they must be intentional. They must be there for a cause, for a purpose, to make the one that has it aware that something is not right. That's what I mean with intention. Disease must be a help. Disease is something that shows us something that is going on there that we must be aware of. So that's why the most important question that we have to go through is, where do thoughts come from? Can they come from the brain or not? They cannot come from the brain, because the brain is physical and thoughts are spiritual. And that's why thoughts must come from outside the body. But we need to prove that. Yes? And we will do that. How did I find out where thoughts come from? You see, we learn in school, not always is bad what we learn. We learn a method by excluding what something can, then you know what is there, what is missing. So I started to put my question saying, what can chemistry do and what can chemistry not do? Yes, that's a simple way to exclude, and you all know the periodic system, and the question is, what is chemistry able to do? And there are, in summary, three things that chemistry can do. Chemistry can only occur depending, or reactions, chemical reactions can only occur depending on outside factors. We all know that. Can only proceed as intended, designed, because the necessary prerequisites for reaction are always predetermined. That is, you must have the right setting for that action to be, for that reaction to be. If two atoms can never react together, they will never react together. That's the 2 points. They must outside factors, they are predetermined if a reaction can happen or not. And the third thing is the most big thing. Chemistry can absorb, store, and share energy and information. This iPad is what? Chemistry or not chemistry? What is it? It's chemistry. The girls know it. So how many thoughts are in an iPad? Are you with me? How many thoughts are in an iPad? None. All that you have in an iPad is just information. It is just electricity. Yes, yes and no, yes and no. It's a binary system. And you can have in your iPad no thoughts. You have only electricity. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's all you have. But you see, you can put spiritual information on this iPad, because what you read is physical or spiritual. The information you hear is spiritual or physical? It's spiritual. So it's not something. When you write something on a paper, what do you write on a paper? You write a thought, you write an idea, and you see chemistry takes it over and it stores it, and you can read it again. But chemistry, does this iPad know what we've written on it? No, because it knows only yes and no, yes and no. That's all that it has. So, then, that's all that chemistry can. Now, what can humans and animals do that is more than chemistry? And those are the things that we can now see what is not able chemistry to do. And chemistry is not able to feel anything. There's no feeling in chemistry. Does this iPad feel anything? Even though it's touch, you see, I put in this and it changes the... Does it feel anything, this iPad? No, because there is no ability in chemistry to feel anything. Chemistry cannot choose if the reaction has to happen or not. Chemistry cannot make decisions, but you can you? Imagine that oxygen says, now today I want to do any interaction with hydrogen, or is that imaginable? No, it's not, because cannot. my best argument against the idea that we are only chemistry is chemistry, by the law, can never destroy itself. We never need to protect anything from itself. That is pure chemistry. We always need to protect it from outside factors. But humans and animals can destroy themselves. You know that animals can do suicide? Yes. They stop eating. And they don't want to eat anymore. You cannot force them to eat, and so they die on their own choice. And humans can do that as well. How did that come? How can a human make the decision to jump down a bridge that is 50 meters high or 40 meters, 20 meters high? How many inches is that? How many feet? About, yeah, I don't know. However, would your brain ever decide to jump down a bridge? Would your brain ever decide to drink alcohol? Would your brain ever decide to take something toxic that destroys it? Would it or would it not? It cannot. There's no decision in that. So humans and animals can destroy themselves, so there must be more than chemistry. Because chemistry can, by the law, never do itself harm. An apple, you know apples? Can an apple rotten himself? Or is he rotten? You understand? Yes? So can an apple rotten himself? He must be rotten from outside. Yes? Something must make him rotten. So when we want to keep the apple longer, so what do? We do something around him so that he could not get attacked from outside. Of course, he has also bacteria inside, so it won't last. Sometimes he will be rotten. Not by himself, but by the outside factors. So any physical thing can never destroy itself. But humans and animals can do it. So there must be more than chemistry there. The third, cannot have consciousness. Do you think your brain knows anything? It's a hard question, is it? I hope you know that your brain is like an iPad. You know that? Your brain is like an iPad? So, does it know anything? Does the brain know anything? No. It's just used. It's just used for knowledge. It's like an iPad, you write on it. There are no cognitive abilities. There are no morals. Where do these abilities come from? Where do we know? Well, how can we do this and make it clear that chemistry can do that? Who will prove that? Is there any scientist that says, I can prove you that chemistry can think, or chemistry can destroy itself, chemistry can feel, chemistry can have consciousness? There's no such thing. Everyone who would try to do it goes into an impossible way. So I want to give you shortly 4 evidences that we must have a mind or a spirit. There must be a spiritual entity in us. And my first proof for it is the spiritual needs. Animals and humans have spiritual needs. They need liberty or freedom. Do they? How many chemistry is in freedom and liberty? There is no chemistry in that. They need safety and security. They need curiosity and knowledge. Sometimes I make this analogy between women and cats. I have at home a woman and a cat. What do they have in common? Sometimes I'm not sure who is more curious, because I never saw an animal so curious like a cat. I never saw another woman so curious than my wife. So sometimes I don't know who is more curious. And just, yeah, what is curiosity? Chemistry? Where does it come from? It's a pure spiritual thing. And I I'm amazed about cats, how curious they are. Do they need understanding? Do we need understanding? Yes. Orientation and holding, loyalty, confirmation, reward, joy, harmony, all that animals and humans have in common. And now I just take some human things, just righteousness, justice. Does a dog know what is righteousness and justice? No, but we know it. Yes? Truth, responsibility, morality, wisdom, recognition, appreciation, happiness, peace. All these things are spiritual needs. And my question is, these spiritual needs, they're not emotional needs, please don't confuse them. I shared that last night. They're pure spiritual. There is no chemistry in that. Can you have a need without it is asked from somebody? Let me explain. Can you have hunger for food or thirst for water without existing a body? No, because the body needs those things, so he says, give me this water or the food. So, if there is no hunger and thirst without a body, then who asks for these things? Who wants them? Do you want them or do you not? You can dispense them. Do you need them or not? You have a choice not to want them? Do you have a choice not to want them? No. You are striving your whole life for, I call all this together love. The whole life you're striving for love. When you open your eyes as a child, you just want love. Am I right, girls? Why do you make your hair like you make it? It's just all a matter of love. Love, liberty, yes? Do you need liberty, girls? How much? 100%. 100%. There is no 99% of liberty. So that's why this needs, someone needs to want them. You cannot have a need without someone says, I need it. And that what you need is not a choice. These needs are not a choice. You cannot dispense of righteousness. If someone does you unrighteous, you will die on it. Because you need righteousness. You will fight for righteousness. You will do everything to get your right. And it will destroy you. Because you have no choice. I had a gentleman, he was over 70 years old. He was in my practice, had many diseases, but one of it was that his eyes were all the time watering, yes? They were just lacrimating, is that the word in? Pardon? Yes, lacrimating, yeah? Okay. I'm learning English. So, all the time, and he says, doctor, help me to stop that process. And I said, come to counsel, and he came for counseling, and he had a conflict with his neighbor. He already spent 70,000 euros, that's about almost $100,000, in the court sessions. He also involved the German chancellor in this process, yes, in this court thing. And I said to him, stop fighting and your eyes will clear. Can he do that? Oh, you don't know. He cannot do it. He must have righteousness. I have patients in my practice that just for 1 meter or 1 inch of a piece of land, they fight till they die. Because they say, this piece is mine, and that is the neighbor's, and he cannot come a single inch. And they fight for a tree. They fight for I don't know what. And I have stories of stories, because I spoke with thousands of people in 14 years. And it's amazing, the stories are always about this spiritual needs. They're not about food, they're not about chemistry, they're about fights of some needs they have. These needs are pure imaginary. They have nothing to do with chemistry. But they are there, and people have no choice to stop it. This gentleman cannot stop. except he understands that something in his mind is wrong, except he understands that what destroys his body cannot be correct, that he does not hunt something wrong. He wants just righteousness. He wants justice. Does he want something bad? No. Why then is he sick? Why then is he fighting to destroy his body? So there must be something in us that says, I need righteousness, and that what is in us that says, I need righteousness, must even have the capacity to prove if it is righteous or not. Does your body prove your food? Are you? Yeah, don't answer too hardly. Does your car prove your gas that you put in? Yes, if you put something else, it don't work, and it doesn't work anymore. So it proves it, if it's right or wrong. And if you put something in your stomach, and it's taken in your body, and it's wrong for the body, you will have a problem, you will have a symptom from that, because your body proves the intake. Because the intake that you need is set what you need. And if you put something there that you don't need, or is a poison to it, then the body will have that dysfunction. The same thing is in the mind. If your mind says, oh, he lied unto me, you will get angry. Without a choice. Because you need truth. And as long as you don't know how to assimilate that, how to fulfill those spiritual needs, you might be in big troubles all the time. People are in big troubles because of these needs. And there must be an entity in us that needs it and proves it if it's correct or not. If it's that what they need. The second proof for this is there is a contradiction between the spiritual and the body. There's this contradiction between the mind and the body. And if there is a contradiction, there must be two entities that they are there communicating each other. So I have a funny question. So don't answer too much, too early. You see this picture here? This lady gives water to this flower. The question is, why does the lady give water to the flower? Yes, you can say. Why does she give water to the flower? It's needed. The flower needs water. We know it, but that's not the answer. Why does it give water to the flower? She wants to have the flower. Yes, okay. But it's not the answer. Pardon? Gives her joy. Yes, but why does she put water to the plant? Think more deep. She sees the need, yes, but there's still not the answer. If you recognize the need, why do you give water to the plant? The answer is very simple. Because the plant cannot go to the water. Okay? If the plant could move itself to the water, she would never give the plant water. You see the point? In the plant world, there is no capacity. In the plant world, there is no ability to supply themselves their needs themselves. No plant can go and say, I need this, let's go, take it. Are this? They might be not true, are they? Okay. I'm just thinking. So, plant needs light. Can they walk to the light? Can they say, here I don't get enough light, just walk out to do it, to get it? No, plant can never supply their own needs. These needs must be brought to them close, so that they are able to take it over. So plants are dependent for their basic need to be brought near to them, so they can take them over. That's why you give water to the plants, because you know they cannot go to the water well to take it. Yes? But when you put it there in that thing around it, then the plant can take it, because can she put water in the plant, or can she not put water in the plant? No, she cannot put water in the plant. She just put it around, because the plant must take itself by that fundamental of take to give the water in it. So our body is like a plant. So, in humans and animals, only the spirit can decide what we have to give to our body. So let's assume you have hunger. Do you have hunger sometimes? Yes. So, who must give the body its food? Can the body take his food? Can the body go to the fridge and say, I'm hungry now, let's eat something? Can he do it? No. Hunger then would be no needed. The body is dependent on the spirit to ask for, please give me food. And then he puts it close to it because it cannot put it in the body. You see, everything you put in your stomach, you put in yourself or not? That's a too fast answer. Everything you put in your mouth and put into your stomach is not in your body. It's outside of your body. Because the whole thing is open from here to the end. And so everything that is inside of that is not in you. It's on you. So it must be resorbed in your blood system, and then it is in you. So you cannot put that in your body, you can put it close to your body. And then the body must take it in order to give it. So it's so important to understand the simplicity of the law. You can inhale oxygen, but you bring it into your lung. And someone in the lung must pick it up, takes it, and gives it further through the blood. And from there it goes further on. So, we must understand the body cannot feed itself except you put the things around him. It must be there to put it in. So, now we have two kinds of needs. We have spiritual needs and physical needs. And if there comes a conflict between the purpose, yes, the spiritual needs are there for our purpose and goal, and it comes a conflict between life. Let's say if you have a conflict between righteousness and life, what is your only choice? Will you fight? What would you like to have, righteousness or life, if they are in conflict? What is your only choice to choose? So I heard life and I heard righteousness. Now, you must know it never depends. Because the way we are structured, spiritual needs are always before physical needs. You never have a disease because you strive for life. You see, the survival idea is total nonsense. My people that are in my praxis, they don't want to survive. They only want to survive because they have a purpose and goal. Disease is a conflict for the goal, not for life. Because life we have, and purpose we don't. Why are young people going out in the evening? To socialize for what? For life or for purpose? They search purpose. Do they find it there? No, they drink alcohol, they take drugs, they do all these kind of things. Why do they do it? Because they want to live? I put this question to my patient, says, are you okay just to live? Is it enough for you to live, or do you want more than life? What is their answer? You will always want more. You want to marry, you want to, I don't know what. But all those things are things that are spiritually, not physically. And when there is a conflict between righteousness and life, everyone chooses and must choose righteousness. Life is only important as you have your spiritual need fulfilled. And I tell you a story of a patient who got ill sick, and the doctor tells him you have to live maybe 3 months. And then he immediately says, oh, then I will never see my daughter, or I cannot bring my daughter to the altar. I will not see my grandchildren. What does he want? Why does he want to live? For purpose. And if he fights disease, he doesn't fight it because he wants to live. Because if he would have no purpose, he would never fight disease. Why do we have so many suicides today? What do people search for? They don't search for life. I had once a mother come to me that she has a daughter that is 21 years old, and the daughter wrote to mother a letter and says, "Mother, I want to die. I won't eat from today on, so don't bring me food anymore. I want to die. I don't eat anymore." Why would she come to the idea to die when she's 21? Why does she have no reason to live when you're 21? What do you miss? Life? Do you miss life? No, her boyfriend left away, and she just thought now she has no purpose in life anymore. Because boyfriends are unfortunately seen as purpose. I don't know, there's no purpose in boyfriends and girlfriends. But unfortunately we do that. We don't see the error that we have in our minds. So she thinks the boyfriend is the purpose. Now he left her and she just wants to die. I had another patient, he came to me when he was 47 years old, and he said to him when he was 17, he said, "If I'm not going to be happy with 21, I will kill myself." And so with 21, his girlfriend finished with him, and he said, "Oh, this 21, I decided to, if I'm not happy," and so he jumped from a high bridge. It's 20 meters, that is how many feet? 60 feet. So he jumped down from 60 feet high on the cement, and he survived. He just broke all his legs, but he survived. He was a long time in coma, but he came out of it. Why would you jump? Because you want to live? There is never a fight for life, except there is first a fight for purpose. That's why the idea of survival is a total wrong idea. No dog wants to survive. Every dog wants love. Every one of us, everything that has a spirit, has first the spiritual needs. In the battle between goal, between purpose and life, always purpose wins. And I just got that in my practice. I saw that in all my patients. And you can prove it to yourself. What is in your life more stronger? Why are you depressed? Because you lose your purpose. Why are you stressed? Why are you having anxiety? Because you don't know how to fulfill your purpose. Because life you have. Yes, you cannot fulfill your purpose without life. But life is just a support that you have. But the spiritual needs and the purpose you have not yet. So the third proof is the hierarchy between the body or the spirit and the body. So if there is an hierarchy, then there must be two things. That's why I emphasize this. If there are two units in the animal and the man, they must communicate with each other. How do the spirit and the body in animals, in humans, and in humans communicate with each other? So we have the spirit and the body, and they must communicate, yes? So the body communicates through feelings or emotions. Everything you see, you hear, and so on comes from your body. We'll see that tomorrow. And it reaches your spirit. Now, is hunger a command to the spirit to eat? Are everything that you feel, can it force the spirit to do its demands? Can you or can you not? Oh, you're good. So there are only demands and signals. It is not something that can force the spirit. The spirit is an entity, and that's a big difference to the body, that can never be forced to obey. You can force the body, can you? Yes, you can force the body, you can bind it, you can force the body to do things, but you can never force a spirit to obey to you. Now the spirit needs to feel everything that you inflict on the body. Yes? If you put pain into the body, the spirit must feel it. But that pain will not force the spirit to act. We have the people that were tortured, and did they change their mind? Some might, because they were thinking, and we will see how the process of thinking works, but you can never be forced to do anything except you do it. The spirit is never forcible. You cannot force a dog to do your will. He does it by himself. And that's a very important thing to understand. I had a series of meetings last year in Canada, and there were also children, and I like when children listen to the presentations because they're very paying attention. Even though they might play, but they can tell you everything later. They might tell you exactly what matters. And the mother came to me, and she had a 7 or 9-year-old son, I don't know exactly, either 7 or 9-year-old, and the next day after this lecture about the spirit, the mother puts her son to make the piano lessons. And the boy says to his mother, he says, "Mother, do you remember the lesson last night? You cannot force my spirit to do the piano lesson." And so children are very smart, are they? They just get the idea. And he got it well, did he? Now why he does still the piano lessons if he cannot be forced? Because the spirit has needs, and you can buy the spirit. You see, I have patients in my practice that come with their children, and the mother says, "Please open your sweet mouth so that the doctor can look in." The child doesn't open the mouth. Now, can we force it? Oh, you cannot force it, and I would do that. If it's 3-4 years old, you can do nothing. Yeah? And so, how can you then still do it that she should open the mouth? You can bribe it, yes, because it has needs. And so the mother says, "You get your favorite ice cream." And then, or some French fries, whatever the child needs best, mothers know that, and so they can buy them. And then the child is very smart. This girl was very smart. She said to her mom, when the mom said, "You will get your favorite ice cream," she says, "Immediately?" That's fantastic, isn't that? These children are fantastic. And what does the mother need to say? "Yes, sir, immediately, at your command." So the mother must say, "Yes," and when she says yes, what happens with the mouth? It opens automatically. Because the spirit was brought to action. He acted himself. You cannot force him, but since he's dependent, you can fool him. You can make him to do your will. But without him doing it, if that would not have been a need for her, that ice cream, what would the child have said? "Mother, next. Bring another offering." Say something else that will motivate me to open my mouth. So there is never a spiritual force. There is never that anyone can force your spirit to act. Only you can act. There is never a forcing to obedience. If it would, then you would have no responsibility. Then you could say, "Oh, this woman forced me to sleep with her." Or you say, "This person forced me to do that." Is that possible? No, of course not. No one can force you never to obedience. You are always the one that acts. And it's a very important thing because it's a big difference between the body and the spirit. We will see that tomorrow night because I have to finish so that you don't get overloaded. But what are thoughts towards the body? Are thoughts toward the body demands or commands? When you say, "Body, please, hand, move yourself," will the body say, "Oh, please, today I have holiday, don't work"? Is it possible? No. The body must listen to the commands of the spirit through the thoughts. Decisions are not a choice. Anxiety, a panic attack, is not a choice. When you get it, it's just a little thing, and in the next moment your whole body is totally under a changed chemistry in split of seconds. Why? Because thoughts are commands. When the spirit thinks and gets afraid, a chain of reactions happen, and those chains are there immediately because thoughts and decisions are commands. The body cannot choose and say, today, let's see. He's just in a movie. Because he gets stressed, no problem. Because he gets afraid, it's not real. So the kidneys don't do any adrenaline. Can they choose that? Are you with me? Can they choose it? No. If you get scared from something that is scary, or you get scared just from an idea, it doesn't matter. Your body will react on it because the spirit takes decisions. The body has no choices to react. He must react always to orders, commands of external actions. So that's a marked difference between the body and the spirit. And there is something very important to mention here. If the spirit's needs are before the body's needs, can the spirit come out of the body? Because in science, we cannot deny that we have a psyche. But we all think that psyche arises from the cortex. Even something from the limbic system. But in the limbic system, we have only chemistry. So, if the spirit would come from the body, which needs would be first? Now, if the needs would come from, if the spirit would come from the body, then the body's needs would be first, because the body would make the spirit, so the spirit needs to obey the body. But this is not real thing. It's always the opposite. Yes, they are in total dependency and one influences the other, and we will see that more. But it's always the right hierarchy. Your spiritual needs are first because your spirit is first in command. He comes before the body to put the body into actions. So the third and the fourth evidence is the legal evidence. I always try to have that, which is most forcible at the end. So the fundamental basic law says that nothing works without power and energy. And so the question is, what is the difference between a living person and the dead one on brain level? What is missing in the brain? Yes, they cannot think and feel, but what is missing? What can we not measure anymore in the brain? We cannot measure electricity. So from where does the electrical current in the brain come from? Why is it there and then suddenly it's not? Who makes the electricity to the brain? Can the brain do it by itself? How much sugar do you need to eat to have one thought? How much sugar do you need to eat to have one thought? One will action. Can sugar make electricity? No, cannot do any actions. So the only way that is explainable is, and we can even prove it, decisions are, in the moment a person makes a decision, there is an electrical impulse that we can measure in the brain that was not there before. So decisions, thoughts, do put the brain into action, so they come before the brain. So that's why when the spirit and the body separate, a person is death. So power for our body comes from the spirit, from what we think. And of course we also need food, chemistry. We have two needs, electricity and chemistry for the body. And we have to know who does what and who regulates what. And we will see that in the next nights. So let's do the summary and finish. If there is no spirit, there is no spiritual activity, consciousness. There are no spiritual needs. There are no sensory perceptions, feelings, sight, smell, taste, hearing. Those are all the actions or the capacities of the Spirit, they would not be there. There are no thoughts, no thinking, there is no judgment, no responsibility, there is no morality or ethics, there is no spirituality, and we could not move ourselves. The most important thing is, you can never move if you have no spirit. That's why plants cannot move. And they have no spiritual needs, they cannot think and feel anything. But humans and animals, everyone that can move itself, must have a spirit. You know, some people come and say, well, but the sunflower moves its head towards the sun. Does the sunflower move its head, or is her head moved by the sun? Who does what? You know, it's the sun. It's an automatic thing that they have to do it. It's not a choice. But humans have a choice if they move their hand or not. Yes? Animals have a choice if they do something or not. And that's why they must have a spirit. So, this is the, I know this lecture is a little bit, boring, because we have to have a lot of few things to do, but it's very fundamental. If the thoughts come from outside the body, and they come from the spirit, we need to understand the spirit. We need to know how it works. And we need to know why it gives to the body thoughts that destroy your ear and your... Do you want to know the story? What this gentleman was thinking? Because only his thoughts could make him that thing. But if you have a man who is around 50 and you ask a man, do you have anything on your heart? What is the answer of a man? He says, I have no problems. Because men have no problems. That's something typical to men, you know? And if you ask a woman, they have a lot of problems because they're more sincere to themselves. But men, they don't need to go to the doctor. They die better at home. And they never sense their problem. But this gentleman, it was fortunate because he was there with his mother. They both came to do the consultation with me. And so his mother was also sitting there waiting to take her, but she was in the room with him. And so when he said, I have no problems, I said, it's impossible. That thing that you have in your ear is caused by a problem. And it is caused from a conflict. And I even asked him why, because I knew which side of the brain, he's left-handed and it's the left brain. And I asked him, do you have a child? And he says, yeah, I have one. Do you have problems with him? He said, no. The child was 12 years old. And so I turned myself to the mom because, you know, it's good to have two. Sometimes when men come with their wives to ask the wives better, they know better the problem they have. And so I asked the mom, is he problem-free? And the mom says, well, there are problems. No. And I said, but what is the problem? Because if I cannot help him to solve his problem, his ear will still hurt and his tendon will not heal. It might get worse, even though he wears a casket to fix that. And so suddenly he arises from his things because his mom said, well, there are problems. But he said, how can they do this? For 1 year now, he has an issue that doesn't let him sleep. He has this 12-year-old son that discovered a year ago his mobile phone. His mobile phone. So what do the children do with their mobile phone? Do they love them? Yes or no? Yes. How many hours would they spend if they would be able? They just... Yes? He says, my son is just sitting on that device and I cannot do anything anymore with him. And so this father is concerned about his son. But he says, can that cause me my problems? I said, exactly that causes your problem. Because what does he want to do with his son? Does he want to do something possible or something impossible? He attempts the impossible. He wants to control his son while he never can control the spirit of the son. So if he would have a solution how to address the situation, he would have never get any problems in his body, but he has no solution. He must force himself, and he thinks and thinks how I can do this, and he doesn't see a solution, so his body comes and says, stop it, you're wrong. Does he understand it? No, because he wants to help. He wants to do the good. But he destroys himself because his spirit attempts an impossibility. He wants to force his son. He wants to control for the good his son, which is not possible. And now, if he would know how to deal with his son, he would have a solution. Some family came to me with their 7-year-old son. He likes to look to the... You see, today if mothers or fathers want to get their child to be silenced, they just give them an iPad and they are silent. Yes? You don't hear anything anymore. They're just sitting there for hours. Nothing happens. And so this son was watching the cartoons, and he's 7 years old, and they say, we don't know how to handle this situation. I say, it's very simple. This is just a need. He thinks he fulfills a need while watching those cartoons, because we have curiosity in us. We want to know how things are and how they turn out, and we're driven by our curiosity. But is that satisfying our need? No. So I said to him, and he had a shop, and he was a car mechanic, and she had the shop just in front of the house. I mean, they were living at the same place, yes? And I said, why wouldn't you take your son to work with you? Give him to open up whatever you give to a 7-year-old son, and helping his father, would he enjoy it? Yes. So don't take him away from the device. Give him something better. And he phoned me back a few weeks later and said, it works perfectly. He doesn't even need it. Because now he has something better. We must know how to train our mind. We must know how to do the child. And it's always by doing. When you sit in front of something, you do nothing. But if you take your child and give him a hammer and 3 nails and 3 pieces of wood and say, make a basket, he will enjoy it. He will work the whole day on that basket. He will never get upset. His blood pressure would work well. He would not be under tension. You know, if you go to a child that plays on this thing, how is it when you address it? Does he say, oh yes, please, Mom, what do you want? How come? Yes, they are all stressed. Their blood system is all the whole. How can I say? The blood pressure is in a bad shape. Your circulation is only in your brain. It's not anymore in your extremities, and so you're just stuck and destroy yourself. And yes, parents see the danger, but why do they have a solution? Because they try to force. Because they think if they would find a way to force their child to take the device away, we cannot take these devices anymore away. Can we? No, only if some, I don't know what happens. But these devices are here, we must live with them. And we must know how to train our children to use this. But we must know the rule. Never try to force a child to do your will. It will always bring you headache. Because the child is stronger than you. And it's not worth fighting one against another. It's just a conflict that will not reach anyone for the good. That's why disease is a good thing. Could I ever tell this gentleman that he's doing something wrong? Because he thinks he does something good, something right. But in a sense, he does something that is evil. It's irrational. It's controlling others. And we will see that controlling others is an impossibility, and every attempt to control others must be wrong, and the body will show it sooner or later. So that's the end. Where are our singers, song players? And we just listen to the song, and if you have questions till midnight, we can stay here and talk.